All right, I think we're going. Welcome back to another one of these things where we just chat about something or other that comes to mind. Boy, we'll see how long I can go ahead with this video today. Just a ton of meetings. I feel like I just never stopped looking at a computer monitor. Like my right eye, it looks like I'm pointing at my left eye to you, but I'm pointing at my right eye. My right eye is just like dying today. Got like a headache. Normally Heather and I would do streams on a Friday around like 6, but I'm not able to play a game tonight. I feel like if I'm looking at a screen for too long anymore, it'll bother me. So we might just chill with a documentary tonight or something. I just got Curiosity Stream sometime toward the beginning of this year. Just thinking it was like super duper cheap. It was like $12 for the year. So I was like, that's not too bad. $1 a month. Get to check out some interesting documentary stuff from time to time. Might not be a bad thing if you just watch one a month. That's $1 for some quality streaming material. Well, for you streaming, not like us streaming video game stuff. I doubt we'd stream us watching a documentary. I don't know how many views that would get. Probably not much more or less than what we normally get playing games. People just sort of stop by and are like, hey, I like this game. I'll chill out with some people who are vaguely interesting. Anywho, speaking of games, I know one of the things that I was thinking about talking about last week, but I didn't because of the P4A going on, which by the way was super duper cool. Had a good time keeping up with all the live stream stuff going on there. Bunch of funny moments, bunch of heartwarming moments, and a lot of money raised for charity. So that's all good to see. Breaking 2 million. That's pretty crazy. I don't normally see that. I haven't seen that number for the P4A in the past for really anything. Like I remember seeing like Games Done Quick start breaking that number a couple years ago, but that might be the first time that Project for Awesome did that. I know it was the biggest year they've had. I can't remember if they broke 2 million any other time in the past, but still fantastic for people who did get involved. Great job, and personally can't wait until the next one. Honestly, I might see about like if there's ways that I can volunteer for future ones. That might be kind of fun, just to get a little more involved. But anyway, since we're back on Fridays, then you can talk a little bit about game stuff. I'm not sure how great this will all sort of come out. I don't think I have any like fully formed thoughts about this or anything. But I think the last game that I completed, probably getting close to Borderlands 3. Might be able to talk about that one a little bit soon. But the last game that I had played through in its entirety was a game called Robotics Notes. Those of you who don't know, visual novel style game. I think it has an anime associated to it. I don't think it's ever come to America, or to North America rather. Another notable series that's off of that same universe, the science adventure series, is Steins, which like is probably one of my favorite depictions of science in any like fictional medium. I just think they did a really good job like with the concept of time travel and how that integrates with the popular way of considering how the universe works with string theory. I just kind of liked how all of that came together. So I was interested in seeing how this game would sort of deal with that too. But in this game, and like I said, it's a visual novel, so there's not really a lot of like active gameplay parts to it. There are things where you can like explore the world a little bit, but I didn't frankly do much of that. I didn't know I could do that until about halfway through the game. Thankfully, before I needed to start actually doing those things to make story progress. But when I looked that up, people were like, follow a guide once you're past this point in the game, because you won't experience all of the story unless you hit a certain number of these triggers in the game, and then you can experience like all of the different storylines that are available for all the different characters in the game. So that was probably the weirdest part. I'm not used to having to do that, and all the triggers were like not not obvious. So following a guide was like super duper helpful. I'm not sure if that's just like a lost in translation type thing or what, but all of them were pretty good. Honestly, I liked all the characters, and that's probably a good thing coming from like a very story-driven game. All of these characters are they end up being part of a robot club at a high school, where their predecessors at this school or for this club were building a giant robot, and it never finished, and it's falling on the two main characters of this story, mainly one of them, the other one, the one who you're primarily viewing the world through the eyes of. That one, he's more of a layabout kind of guy. Doesn't really do too much outside of playing fighting games, or at least that's what he likes everybody else to think, but honestly cares a little bit more than he lets on, just because, I mean, you're clearly doing a lot of things over the course of this game. It's not like all of your time is spent playing fighting games, but it's mainly the other main character who makes it their goal. It's like her goal to finish this giant robot. And it's just got like a lot of like all the characters that you meet and bring in are people who can kind of help in some way make this robot a reality. And like that's definitely what this game is named for. So you're thinking you're getting into this and it's like, okay, cool, it'll be just a bunch of robotic stuff. And there is a bit of that. Like if you like robots and just mechanical engineering, then some of this game will be kind of neat. Like you just kind of nerd out to some of the stuff that's going on. I didn't know a lot of it. Most of it was going over my head. For the parts where it was programming related, I totally was just like, oh, okay. So you actually did a little bit of research on kind of how you would need to work with programming a robot. But that was about it for me. But oh my goodness, a lot of the story points were just very touching or very, very intense, surprisingly. It had a slow but intentional pacing, I guess would be the kind of way to go about that. The first like 4 chapters maybe, of 4 or 5 chapters of the game feel like you're just sort of living a high schooler's life, basically. And then kind of like with Steins Gate, I never watched Chaos Head, which is the other sort of entry in the science adventure series. But at least with Steins Gate, there's like huge, what's the word? Anchors in conspiracy theories. So like a lot of this goes along with like the Illuminati and things like that. So it's kind of fun seeing the characters just get pulled into this. But in this universe, there's a certain truth to all of that, which is probably bad for anybody who actually believes in that stuff playing the games. And it's like, oh, this game is just proving that like this is exactly how it could happen. The Illuminati is real. But like it was it's kind of one of those things that's just kind of like, okay, so it's kind of fun just to role play in this for a bit and feel like, okay, this is a place where it's okay to believe these conspiracy theories and that the world is run by just a consortium of like the few people who are able to pull the strings, which is kind of fun seeing all that kind of unfold. The way that the game does it too is like really, really neat. It's like, I don't want to like spoil too much of things, but essentially who you're finding out all this information about, like the world and how things are actually working from, has been dead for a long time. And you're uncovering reports that they've written that are telling you little bits of truth about how the world is working. And your character is slowly realizing that the things that the person wrote in their reports are all coming true. So you're slowly falling into this rabbit hole, finding little bits of truth that are being told in these reports over time. And a lot of that drives the story home. But there's just a lot of really interesting story beats that go along with that. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like how like Japanese storytelling like goes. It's kind of engaging in its, I don't want to say mundanity. The pacing is so interesting compared to how I like grew up with North American cartoons, like from the United States and maybe a little bit of Canada. It always feels so episodic, like you have to return to normalcy all the time. And that doesn't have to be the case with Japanese storytelling. Not to say that like some shows don't adopt that framework. A lot of really good anime does that, where you end up having that return to normalcy at the end of every episode. And you need that so that like the viewer can just jump into any episode whenever they want, and then they don't feel like they missed anything. They can still get the full context of the half hour chunk that they watched. Even if there is some like overarching thing, you don't need to do that you don't need to understand that to like enjoy the episode. But if you watch the entire thing and you get the overarching story, then that's kind of a bonus. So it is a bit of an art form, being able to pull that off well. Like even like Cowboy Bebop, one of my gateway anime that I watched did that very well. You don't have to know or see any other episode to like get the context of the episode you're currently watching, outside of two of them, because there are two-part episodes over the course of the 26 episode runtime. But beyond that, the other ones are just, you can totally enjoy the characters, the story of that one little piece without needing to see that entire overarching storyline. However, if you watch from start to finish, you get a really good feel for the characters, how they grow, and how their stories intertwine. But it's not necessary. So it's like even some of those like super iconic ones like Cowboy Bebop, like they do that still. But it's also, they really capture what's kind of I don't know what the word is. I always want to like fall back on the word cozy for some reason. You feel like you're just living alongside these characters. They're not always particularly interesting all the time. They're not always on to entertain you. Some of the things that they're going through are a bit mundane, but the way that is told, the way that they describe those parts of the story to you, they feel, I'm not sure the word, thinking about it. Familiar. They feel familiar. Like it's not boring, but it's familiar. Like you're okay living through this. It's like, oh, I totally get that. I can, like, I would like to kind of hear a little bit more about how this person's day is going. Like it's not so boring as went to school and waited there. It's, you get little bits of nuance about how they're living their lives where you care a bit more about the character. And in shows where you don't return to normalcy at the end of every episode, and you're going through this kind of saga, that like really goes a long way. And this game does a pretty decent job of that slice of life type feel, while still injecting some not like super action oriented things. Like there are a few times in the game where they do that, and it is like super hype. It feels kind of out of place, but at the same time, like it was totally something that could happen the entire time. There's one spot where it doesn't. I won't say anything about it because it's like really weird, and I was expecting that to come back like sometime throughout the rest. I did not trust one of the characters that was introduced for the entirety of the game because of how they were introduced. And I'm like, this person's going to betray us. This person is not a good person. And the entire time I was just on my toes about just when was this person going to betray us? When was this person going to do something? It just did a very good job of that. Very, very good job of like when those action things in there, they do appear. They're meaningful, they're impactful, and they make you as the viewer, as the reader, as the listener, engage with the universe just a little bit more, which I thought was kind of nice. And like some of the action-y stuff, like otherwise, is just like, oh wow, like still pretty crazy that this is happening to a bunch of high schoolers, but given some of the scenarios that they find themselves in, not too unfathomable. Okay, I can actually say the word cool. But yeah, it's like it's hard to tell. It's hard to talk about a very story-driven game without getting into some of those details. So this probably all sounds very vague, but at the same time, it's an enjoyable experience. Definitely follow a guide when you're doing this, because this isn't like spoilery in any way, but I think there's 12 chapters over the course of the entire game, and I think starting at about chapter 4, maybe a little bit after that, some of the ways that you interact with the game matter. They activate triggers that need to be hit to be able to experience one of the other characters' storylines. So each character that your character can interact with, they each have an ending that you can reach. An ending, it's not really an ending, it's just the game does end, you hit credits, but then you go back and play more. And then once you unlock all of those endings, you get to progress to the final character's ending, which is the other half of the robot club from the beginning. Like there's your character and there's the other character, Akiho, and her storyline is the final one that you unlock. All the other ones are just seem like it's not really a branching thing. Like I don't want to call it branching because you want to go through all of them. And then you unlock the last one. It's not really, oh, you went to this other thing and this is just how it ended and blah, blah, blah. It's you do all of these and they all build up on the other ones. The reason why you want to follow a guide is that they actually happen in different orders. So there's like where each of those story endings happen are about month-long time frames. And you could trigger the storyline that takes you from November to December first, and then trigger the storyline that's from like September to October second, and you don't get all of the context for why things happen. So if you follow a guide, then you know which triggers to hit first so that you experience in chronological order, and it all just kind of makes sense. But yeah, that's like probably one of the main weird things is that it is not a typical way of doing that. But like if you liked things like Doki Doki Literature Club or something, where it feels more like an AR experience and you're having to do things in the real world to impact things in the game world, then it kind of fits into that. It's not exactly that, but having that mindset going into that helps know it's like, okay, I need to do something and the game will remember my progress. As long as I continue from there after reaching that ending, then I have certain triggers in the game that allow it to progress in a way that lets me see more of the story. Again, not exactly like that AR experience, but that's kind of what helped me understand how to sort of get through that. Again, not an exact thing, but it helped me at least. Anyway, if you do like stories and decent characters, and like decent character interactions, I thought all of them were pretty nice. There weren't any characters that I just like couldn't stand. They were all pretty good, and there were a lot of feels at some of them. Some of the moments, some of them were just like, I don't know don't know how to deal with some of this stuff. If you like those kinds of moments, maybe go check it out. Wow, exactly 20 minutes. Cool. Again, that's Robotics Notes. Pretty good. I think I spent maybe about 30 some hours in there, but I'm also a very slow reader. Like somewhere between 30 and 40 hours, but I'm just like super duper slow reader. Takes me forever to read anything. Maybe go check that out, especially if you like Steins Gate, similar universe. I was waiting for like other characters from the universe to kind of jump in there. There's one character like that if you've watched or played a Steins Gate, or watched the anime or played a game, for Steins Gate, you might recognize one of the characters. They don't go by a name that you'd remember exactly, but they are a character from the Steins Gate plot line. So kind of neat. Anyway, that's probably about it there. A little bit of a recommendation for you on this snowy Friday. It hasn't stopped snowing around here for like ever, so I'm thinking it's just going to snow forever now. But yeah, hope you're having a wonderful Friday and you have a great weekend ahead of you, and we will catch you in the next one. See ya.